Good afternoon and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be your facilitator for today's session with Dr. Tam Cummings. We're so glad that you have taken time out of your busy day to join us this afternoon. Our session today is sponsored by Vitas Healthcare, and they are providers of hospice care. And Tam will say a couple of words about that, but I want to tell you that they are in 13 states, including Texas and Florida, California, and up in the Northeast. So if you are in need of hospice care, I would encourage you to get in touch with Vitas Healthcare. And tell us how important hospice care is, Tam. You always have a few things to say about that.
It is critical. It's part of our tax dollars. We pay for it. It's meant to be put in place the final year or 6 months of life, not the final 2 days. It doesn't mean death is imminent. It means that you've brought in the next set of professionals to do care for your loved one. And they do so many things. There's medicines they supply, there's supplies that they may be able to supply for your loved one. You have a hospice nurse, a hospice social worker, a chaplain or pastor. You have a caregiver who comes just to do care for your loved one, and they're available to you 24 hours a week. And God bless our hospice people. So thank you to Vitas for sponsoring us. And, don't be afraid of hospice. Don't be afraid to ask the doctor, is it time for a hospice order? And get that extra care in place, whether your loved one's at home or whether they're in a community.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Tam, for that. And thank you, Vitas. Well, let me tell you just about a little bit about Dr. Cummings if you do not know her and have not been with us before. Dr. Tam Cummings founded her company in 2009 with the mission to inspire, educate, and empower dementia caregivers. Now her professional gerontological practice in the Texas Hill Country is recognized as one of the leading educators of dementia caregivers and program design for dementia care nationally. Always good to be with you, Tam.
Same here, Glenda. One of the ladies was raising her hand up, and I thought she was going, woo woo, Texas Hill Country. And I realized she was.
Oh, it was Ruth.
I did. I was like,
we got some really detailed emails since our last session together. I'm going to start with the one from Claudia. I don't see her on here today, but maybe she can catch the answers that Tam has for her in a podcast. So let me just read to you what she had to say. Hello, my mother is 93 years young. Last November, she came into the living room and asked me to show her where the brake pedal was on her car. I thought she was kidding, but she wasn't. That day, she gave me her car keys and has not driven since. I made an appointment with her gerontologist and she ordered tests. And once the results came back, she suggested I take mom to a neurologist. He diagnosed her with Alzheimer's and suggested I take her to a memory clinic nearby and encourage her to take a brisk walk daily. As her caregiver, I am interested in my mother's health and well-being, but the neurologist was not very informative as to the stages of her disease. Actually, none of her doctors are. This may sound familiar to y'all. The Alzheimer's Association is somewhat helpful, but not much. Seeing my beautiful mother's slow decline is painful. So, Tam.
Well, where do you want to start?
Yeah, really. Where do you want to start?
Well, some good things happened. She took her loved one to the doctor, and the doctor sent the loved one on to a neurologist who did testing. But this gets really complex, Glenda, because when you reach your 90s, the odds are now 1 in 2 of developing either type A or type B form of late onset Alzheimer's. And in type A, the person is described as very pleasant. In type B, it's a more agitated presentation. But the other side of this is we don't really know what 90-year-old people should be doing. What should their brain be doing? How complex and compact is their brain? And what is normal for them? So maintaining mobility and agility, that's a great thing. Sounds like nobody was too histrionic or blowing it off and not taking it seriously. But you're right in that the doctors don't understand staging tools. And part of this is because unless that's their specialty, even a neurologist who specializes in dementia doesn't necessarily know how to use the staging tool as a way to explain to the family member what's happening. And neurologists may be using a standard 3-stage tool, which is really built for research neurologists. It's built for incredibly high level educated neurologists who do microbiological stuff to the chemistry of the brain. I mean, these are our biggest, brightest thinkers. And so they just may not think about translating that material back over to the loved one, or even realize that the daughter knew enough about dementia to know that there are stages of the disease and where is her mother. So when you're doing dementias, you have to realize the original 3-stage staging tool was built for research neurologists. It was never built to be used by a regular neurologist or a regular physician or a geriatrician or a gerontologist. It was built for research folk. And from that, we got Reisberg's scale in the 70s, and Reisberg broke the 3 stages down into 7 stages using normal aging as the baseline. So stage 1 is normal aging, stage 2 is mild cognitive impairment, stage 3 is where the word dementia is used for the first time. Stage 4 is called moderate dementia. Stage 5 is moderately severe dementia. Stage 6 is severe dementia, and the bedbound stage is very severe dementia. And what the dementia behavioral assessment tool does is it took Reisberg's information from the 70s, updated it to what we know now, and then added in behaviors that any medical professional or family caregiver could observe. And so by checking off those behaviors, you're able to determine which stage of the disease your loved one is in. And then that stage correlates to how much brain tissue is estimated to be missing, how long a person is in that stage is on the DBAT tool, and the behaviors that you should witness that are indicative that the disease has progressed to that stage. There's another staging tool that is built for people with frontal temporal dementias. It is also a 7-stage tool. And then the third dementia tool used is the 4-stage tool that's used for football dementia, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So there's different tools for different dementias, and some are 3, some are 4, some are 7. And it just has to do with, part of it is where research is, and part of it is what is known about those specific dementias. So if it were my mother and you're talking to me, then the chances are your loved one's actually in stage 5 of the disease. And that's just because we know by the time families begin to reach out to others for information, their loved one is usually much more advanced than you realize. And some of that gets missed, Glenda, because it's our mama. Some of it gets missed because she's 90, and what is 90 something supposed to look like? We miss it because how often do 90-year-old people nap? Is that normal? How long does it take a brain that's got roots on it this long to respond to a question versus somebody who's only got roots this long, which is somebody in their 20s or 30s? So an older brain is thicker and richer and more compact. And so it becomes very difficult of how much have you seen, are you seeing is actually dementia? How much of it that you're seeing is actually a 93-year-old mother? And did the doctor miss anything? Did they do the actual testing that was required? Or did they look at your mother's age and just say, yeah, she has Alzheimer's? Because that again is a very common thing.
Yeah. So being a neurologist is not always a neurologist that can really adequately address these issues and tell you specifically what kind of dementia you have. It's more than
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Most neurologists have no interest in dementia. They don't study it. It's not what they're interested in. They're more interested in headaches or movements or seizures or different things. And some of it has to do with money. If you're a neurologist who does dementia, you see about 8 people a day for an hour at a time. If you don't specialize in dementia, you're a neurologist who sees 36 to 45 people a day. And that's a much different income. And it again has to do with people's interest. So I met a man in East Texas who spoke, and he had Lewy bodies dementia. And part of his frustration was he had gone to 7 neurologists.
Mhm.
And it wasn't the neurologist. He was going to the wrong kind of neurologist.
Right.
You've got to have a specialist, but people think, oh, neurology, that's the brain. They know everything about dementia, and they don't. You have to find the specialist.
Right. Right. Well, thank you. And Claudia, I hope that you catch us on a podcast and hear the answers, to those questions. The next email that we got, and we've been corresponding for a few weeks with Ruth, and you can see Ruth is with us today, and we're so glad, Ruth. So I'm going to pick some things that you've told us, and then we're going to get to your questions. And since you're with us, when we get there, you can always fill in the blanks. All right. So Ruth tells us that as we've been communicating, she had only just entered her husband, and his name is Craig, into hospice care. She felt a little unstable about her decision. Now she feels that she made the right decision because he's doing much better now. But she also worries, and this goes back to our discussion about Vitas, that he isn't sick enough to be on hospice care, right? So I think y'all can relate to that. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in January of 2019. And now that she knows about Parkinson's and she recognizes the subtle symptoms, that they probably started about 35 years ago. It's a long time. Since Craig has been relatively high functioning up until he contracted COVID in May of 2021, that's where all of her questions began. Since that time, he has lost his capacity to function. All the ADLs and IADLs have declined 100%. The latest thing the latest thing to go is his ability to feed himself and brush his teeth. Cognitively, he seems to be a baffling case as far as Ruth is concerned. Sometimes he cannot remember how to use his phone, the television remote, or even the remote to his lift chair. He cries easily, often has mild seizure type episodes where he freezes and shakes or loses consciousness. But then on the other hand, and this is why it's confusing for Ruth, when a visitor or caregiver from hospice comes to see him, he is miraculously able to converse and joke with them. So here's Ruth's question. Does Craig actually have dementia?
Yep.
That was pretty straightforward.
Yeah. In fact, as you read it, Glenda, and I listen, I hear things that sound like Parkinson's, and that Lewy body has now joined it. And the reason that it looks so different is in these dementias, the hippocampus doesn't die until much later in the disease. So they don't look like Alzheimer's dementia, which can be confusing to people. And then you have to remember that your social skills are one of your oldest, longest memories. You begin to learn social skills the day you were born. That started. But by the time you were 2 or 3, you were being prompted to say to total strangers or to family, hi, how are you? And then I say, oh, I'm fine. How are you? And you say, oh, I'm fine. How's your family? And I say, oh, my family's fine. How is yours? And you say, how's the weather? The weather is fine. How's my weather? Oh, my weather's good. How's work? Work is good. How's your work? My work is fine. The answer to everything is fine because your mama told you a long time ago, I don't really care. I'm just having a social conversation with you. It doesn't mean anything. So when these caregivers come in to see your husband, they say, hi, how are you doing today? And he immediately is able to respond, well, I'm fine. How are you? As far as being on hospice and not being allowed to be on hospice, if he didn't qualify for hospice, he wouldn't be on hospice. They have greatly tightened those rules. They follow it very strictly. We have people that get on hospice and then graduate hospice, if you can believe that. But it came from Congress changing laws in the early 2000 2010s, because we begin to see people with dementia who'd been on hospice for years. And that wasn't the purpose of hospice. But if he's on hospice, then he qualified for hospice. You're simply watching your husband's very polite, very social response when strangers come in. I've seen people with dementia try to get out of a chair because a lady came in the room. And so he's simply responding with his social skills, but it's not cognition. And that's where people usually confuse it, is they think that that social conversation of, hi, how are you, actually has cognition, and it's not. It's just a many time repeated social skill that you and I have learned to do. And so that's part of what you're seeing. The Parkinson's you think you saw it as an onset 35 years ago. No one knows him better than you. And you probably did see it. Parkinson's can be a disease that lasts for decades and then becomes a dementia. And once it becomes a dementia, you have to remember Parkinson's falls under the Lewy body umbrella. So if we see Parkinson's first, we expect Lewy body and Alzheimer's to join it. If we see Lewy bodies first, we expect Parkinson's and Alzheimer's to join it. So it could be that you're seeing things that look odd because you're seeing another dementia begin to happen in the brain. But it also sounds to me like when you describe the seizures and then a sudden freezing unconscious activity or behavior, seizures are, in people with dementia, they're called seizures, but they're frequently strokes is what they're actually having. But in Lewy body and Parkinson's dementias, you have this very unusual feature where they stiffen and suddenly lose consciousness. And that's not understood. It's just part of their disease, just like constipation is part of Parkinson's disease, dementia, and Lewy body's dementia. And it's not related to diet or exercise. It's something going on in the brain. So your fella's got Parkinson's disease dementia. Because of how long he's had it, he may have developed Lewy bodies. That seizure, stiffening, loss of consciousness certainly says Lewy bodies. And it's just probably that he's got more things happening in his brain than we have the ability to even test for or tell you. Does that make sense to you?
She talked about his dreams too, which may help also define this. I didn't go over that. He began acting out his dreams and hitting Ruth in the night about 10 years into their marriage. It was 1985. And it's continued off and on for maybe 15 years, and then it's mostly stopped now.
He may have actually started with Lewy bodies. And it's misdiagnosed as Parkinson's because REM, sleep behavior order, which is when you reach deep sleep, the person is acting out their dreams. So they're kicking and punching. If they think they're fighting or they dream they're running, they're actually doing that. But that's really a classic feature of Lewy body dementia, although it is also seen in Parkinson's. And you may have just a complete mixture of both.
Wow.
Okay, so I would go to lbda.org. That's Lewy Body Dementia Association.org.
Okay.
I would go to nih.gov and in the bar type in Lewy Body Dementia Handbook, and it will bring up about a 40-page PDF. You can either order it, it's free, or you can print it out for yourself. But it's one of the best booklets on stages of Lewy bodies that's more specific to the Lewy body Parkinson cluster, as well as just giving you great information about what's happening with your loved one.
Wow, that's helpful. Thank you.
That may be why it's so confusing to you, Ruth, is
Yeah, a lot of times it
quick.
is. You're watching different
Yeah.
things. So you're, like Glenda said, it's confusing because you see parts of one thing, but then you see parts of something else. And then especially for the wives, and I don't know why it's the wife. I think it's the doctor's not taking you seriously. But Glenda, how many times has the wife told us that in the case of Lewy bodies specifically, that the doctor ended up telling the wife, you're crazy, you need counseling, you need help, there's nothing wrong with him. And one lady said, because she just stamped her foot, the neurologist said, okay, we'll send him for testing. And when he came back positive for Lewy bodies, which she had clearly been describing to him on multiple visits, she said instead of sending him a nasty note, she wrote him a thank you for getting her to the doctors that had the knowledge and education to properly diagnose her husband. So she got him in a very subtle but gentle and polite way.
Yeah.
But that's what I would think, is that you've actually seen multiple dementias occurring.
Okay. And I want to ask you, is there enough research about COVID
Oh,
coming?
yes. So now to COVID. Okay. So COVID has an extremely detrimental effect on people with dementia. For stage 7 people, the morbidity rate is almost 90%. For people in stage 6, it's in the 80s. For people in stage 5, it's in the 60s, which means a person in stage 5 who got COVID, I would survive. They had a 58% chance of dying just because of the COVID. And so now you have to back up and look at, what does COVID actually do? COVID's cells move into the lower parts of your lung. Normally pneumonia and bronchitis is in the upper lobes of the lungs. This is something we'd never seen before. It moved into the lower part of the lungs where it binds with the ACE receptor cells. The ACE receptor cells are what takes oxygen from your lung and moves it through the capillaries into the blood system. Remember back in junior high and high school, we learned about our capillaries and our vascular system and how blood moved through. And what we know, and this is the weirdest thing, Glenda, it can only be seen on an MRI using a certain type of testing and gas. I want to say rayon gas, but I'm probably wrong. But that's the only thing that allows people to see the scarring that happened during COVID. And so what happened to some people, the ones that we call long haul, the ones that we saw tremendous changes in their dementia status, is there is scar tissue there now, and they literally are not getting enough oxygen. And so you take somebody with brain disease already, and now you deprive them of oxygen. And so you naturally get a very rapid downturn.
Okay. Wow.
That's why long haul COVID people get so short of breath. And he probably gets short of breath or gets easily exhausted. And now as he's moved into the final part of his life, it might even be hard for you to differentiate that. But when families can go back to a specific time and say on August 21st, mama changed, well, that's usually a stroke. But if you're able to go back and say, after a bout with COVID, we saw this decline, it's the result of COVID in a person with dementia.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Ruth,
Appreciate
you
it.
And
had
we've
questions
depressed
about
you.
medications?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he's even right now acting like he's got a lot of anxiety, and there's also depression. But as I've talked to his nurse with hospice, he hasn't gotten back to me yet to tell me what my options are. I'd really like to know what you would suggest if there is something.
Well, we don't take people off antidepressant medication until they draw their final breath. So
He's not on one, except for he is on the one for sleep, but they didn't give it to him. This was from his neurologist. For depression, they gave it to him for sleep because it's very good to relax him. Mirtazapine, no, is that, yeah, mirtazapine, I think is what it's called.
I don't do medicine.
Oh, you don't know.
So what I would be looking at is, if you'll go to the bottom of my webpage in the tools section, or you can Google it. It's the Cornell Scale for Depression.
Okay.
Cornell Scale for Depression is a tool that I use because it allows me to determine if someone is having depression without talking to them, because we can't trust somebody with brain damage to give us a correct answer.
Yeah.
I would do the Cornell Scale for Depression. You had also mentioned that he had bouts of crying. A sudden onset of crying or laughter is called pseudobulbarism. So Pseudo, Pseudo, separate word, Bulbarism. And it is the person's inability to control their emotions. And so they either suddenly begin to cry with no provocation of why they're crying, or they laugh. Now, oddly enough, if the person laughs, the family doesn't think they need medicine because, oh, they're laughing. And what you're missing is any emotion you're not in control of is not fun, even if it is laughter. So if my person was having tearful moments where tears are coming out and there doesn't seem to be a causation for it, I would be looking at my pain ad to make sure that we're not missing pain. And don't believe that hospice knows what the pain ad is. Okay, that's a dementia specialty tool. I would do the Cornell scale for depression. I would do the Hamilton anxiety scale for anxiety. And I would look at, are any of those things happening to him? And if they're not, then we have a medication for pseudobulbarism that he would be placed on. And it stops it like that. So it's an
You
emotion
know,
that he's not in control of, but it's called
okay.
pseudobulbar.
He laughs when he's frustrated. Like when I'm frustrated with him and I'm like, I can't get you up. Can you help? And he'll start laughing. And I'm like, wait, this is not funny.
Yeah,
This
you're
is not
seeing
funny.
pseudobulbarism.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's going to do any good to ask, can you help? Because you sort of have to understand at this point.
Yeah,
My
he can't help.
logic would be he doesn't understand language enough to understand what you're asking him. You also have to remember they don't see the way you and I do. So they can't see stuff right in front of them. They can't see stuff on the side of them. So, you know, you have to pick your battles, even though it's not a battle, but you've got to realize he doesn't necessarily understand what you're wanting him to do. When you say, come on, let's get up. And the laughing is the response to that if he doesn't know what else to do. So that's what his brain does.
Yes.
And that in
Okay.
turn frustrates you because why are you laughing? I'm in here trying to get you out of bed.
Mhm.
And you're wanting to pull his head off and get him out of bed without hurting him or losing your own temperature. So one thing might be to do when he does that, let him lay back down and nap for a little bit and come back around and try it again.
Okay.
It's not imperative. It's nobody on their deathbed ever says, I wish I had gotten up more. It's like work. Nobody on their deathbed says, gee, I wish I'd gone to work one more week. No, nobody says that either. So it's really about keeping him comfortable. Go to the website grief.com. That is a website by David Kessler. David Kessler was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's graduate student and the co-author of The Stages of Grief. Check the Alzheimer's Society.uk and see what information they have, because there's other things out there that may be helpful to you.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
this
And
is
then
excellent.
breathe, because we really do need you to be the survivor. Okay. And if right now you can't get him up, it's okay. He has a terminal brain disease. If he's comfortable and warm and snuggly in bed, then yay. He had a nice, warm, snuggly time in bed.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Ruth, so much for your correspondence and being with us today. And don't lose us. We're still here for you. Excuse me for my coughing. Okay. Tina, I see you over there. She has questions. She's a caregiver for her dad along with one of her brothers. Her dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about March of 2022. So here are our questions. What is the best MRI test to determine how much of his brain has been lost?
It'd just be a regular MRI. The doctor would decide whether to do it with or without contrast, and that would have to do with other health issues your person might have.
Okay.
It's the basic MRI of the brain.
Okay. Then she said, my dad had an MRI in the summer of 2018 for a possible stroke with a severe case of shingles, and the test noted mild atrophy. So the neurologist says there's I've got something in the way of that. Hold on. There's no sense in doing another one now.
Well, I'm glad it's not his dad.
Yeah,
Amen.
really.
Sorry.
It is hard. It
Sorry.
is hard for you to think about having your loved one do this test again because it is a terminal disease. And laying in that tube for an hour while something goes dong, dong is incredibly difficult for people with dementia to do. And you have to really ask yourself, what is the purpose? I mean, I'm actually kind of proud of your physician because last week a woman called me and the physician wants to do some more MRIs and some more testing, even though they already have a diagnosis, but the doctor wants to do it just for their own education, for their own learning. And that's not worth that to your loved one. You've got the diagnosis. If in 2018 it already saw atrophy, then the brain has shrunk even more because every day when they go to sleep at night, there are fewer healthy, alive brain cells than there were that morning. It's just the brain is that thick and that complex that it takes years for this process to occur.
Was that
So
helpful, Tina?
it is my frustration. I thank you so much for all of these videos that you have put on here, and I stumbled across one of yours. I'm like, I've been looking for this help. So I think my dad has had even earlier than early onset dementia. I don't know what his actual IQ was, but he was very, very smart. Very smart. And so it took a long time for people to listen to me when I said something's wrong with dad. And after listening to you guys, I don't think he had Alzheimer's as early as I thought he did. In 2000, my dad was making very odd decisions on handling the finances, and my parents are in the custom old school thought that my dad handled all finances. My mom didn't handle any. And I happened to be over at the house one day when my grandma was there, and I was taking care of her at the end of her life. And there was a disconnect notice of like the electricity or the gas, something. And I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, what is this? We can't have that disconnected when I'm taking care of Granny here. The county will be all over us. And he said, well, them jokers, they're trying to steal money from me. And I said, what? And he said, I don't pay that until I get this notice. Now I'll take it into them and I'll tell them what money do you really need? What do I really owe? And I'll pay that. And just like magic, all of a sudden, it's not this huge amount, it's a smaller amount, and electricity is still on. He said, I'm on to them jokers. I'm not going to give them more money. And then he did something similar with their mortgage on their house. They had land and they put up the land as collateral to purchase a brand new double wide trailer to be put on a foundation. And my dad didn't pay the mortgage for 2.5 years because he was convinced that the bank knew he had 40 acres. And so if they just overprice the loan, he won't pay it. And then they'll default on it and they'll get 40 acres for nothing, like for free. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. And I called the bank and they told me, they said, we have been begging him to bring someone else in with him. And he's like, I'm the man of the house. I take care of the finances. You guys are jokers and you're thieves and you're not getting my money. And they lost the house, like straight up lost the house. And this was in 2000.
Yeah. You were seeing it then. And now
see, thank you. I said,
you're not crazy. We actually think if you show dementia symptoms in your 70s, it was probably present in your 20s. It just took long enough to do enough damage to be noticed. But
my dad was in his 50s when this was going on.
And how old is he now?
He's 70. He'll be 74 in January.
And he would now look sick, I'm guessing.
No, he doesn't.
Still doesn't look sick. What did your dad do for work?
He was so he worked in sheet metal. He drew up the blueprints. A company would come to my dad's company where he worked, and they would say, we need a part for this microwave, or we need a part for this dishwasher, or we need a part for this machine that runs the farm, whatever. They would describe to my dad what the part was, what they were looking for. And so he would custom make that
so
for
he worked
them.
like as a machinist?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, and then you think his, what was his education level? Was he able to get to school?
Oh yes, he graduated high school. He served in the army. Then when he got out of the army, he went to Bible school, Bible college. He wanted to be a pastor of a church, so he went to Bible college. The only thing he had, which I thought was ironic, is that I think he might have some form of dyslexia. He struggles with reading. He can read, but he struggles with reading, and I'm seeing
You
it even
describe
more
his,
now.
you describe his IQ as being high?
Very high.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So
everybody I talked to
there's this
said,
process called cognitive reserve.
Right.
And what happens in people who are very highly educated, once you reach your master's degree, they're now teaching you at the university to think analytically. But if you
okay,
naturally have a high IQ anyway, you already think analytically. Your brain structure is not the same as somebody of a normal IQ. So
right.
normal IQ is between 95 and 105. So the average IQ is 100. That's the mean.
Okay.
So all the testing materials are made for somebody whose IQ is 100. But
Okay.
what if your dad's IQ was 150? And
Mhm.
he obviously thought analytically because he could take a complex broken piece of a machinery and he could refabricate that in his shop. And that takes a skill set, and that's analytical
Right.
thinking. So what it means is by the time somebody else would notice something's wrong with your dad, his dementia is actually more progressed in terms of how much
Right.
brain damage he has than it would be in a person of average intelligence. Because
Okay.
for your dad to have other people notice that something was wrong with him, he had to lose extensive amount of brain tissue. And so what happens is people who have that happen stay much longer in stage 2, much longer in stage
Okay.
3, much longer in stage 4. But once they turn into stage 5, stages 5, 6, and 7 go very rapidly because they actually have more brain damage than somebody of normal intelligence, because they have
Okay.
to lose a significant amount of their brain to even
Okay.
test on the materials that we have to test people with. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It does. It totally does. Which I think is why I've had such a struggle, because my mom's been in total denial the whole thing.
Yeah, but
Total
it's
and
not,
complete
yeah, but
denial.
we got to go back and
It's
protect mom,
scary.
because mom
Yes.
married to a man who's very much the domination man. I am
Yes.
here, I am the ruler, and by
Yes.
the Bible and by God, that's what I do. And
Absolutely. Yep. And she
that
trusts
tells you
him.
that probably for this whole marriage, he's been the one that makes all the decisions. And even when he makes
Absolutely.
decisions that aren't financially sound, she
Right.
doesn't have the ability to stand up to him because that's not what their
Right.
relationship has ever been like.
Right.
So
Right. And
you
she
can't,
totally, yeah, I'm not upset with my mom at all. We're just trying to slowly present this information to my mom and get her more accepting of it. So one of the biggest concerns and why I was thinking the MRI would help is that my dad is still driving, and he shouldn't be, because of two main reasons. One is that you can tell when he is unsure, he's having a bad day and he's unsure of where he's at, he drives under the speed limit. Normally my dad's a very fast driver. Normally he's actually a very capable driver, has been, but now his attitude, he knows where he's at during the daytime, that part is fine, but he totally thinks that it's other people on the road are having the issue. It's not
yeah,
his driving is perfect.
everything your dad is doing from 20 years
Yes.
ago with the bank and the mortgage and the disconnect and the bank and the electric company, and they're lying to me and they're doing all
Right.
of those things are perfectly normal dementia behaviors. But at
Okay.
the same time, you're trying to convince us that 20 something years later, with extensive brain damage, he's okay to drive. And that's
No,
true. That's simply not true. Well, you've already said he's okay to drive. He knows how to go drive.
no, he
Oh,
thinks,
no.
no.
And the reality is, no, he doesn't. And the second
Right.
reality is when he has a car wreck, and I know of a community in Florida that's got 3 little old ladies that are in that memory care community because each one of them killed somebody driving.
That's
And
what I'm
one of
afraid
them,
of.
her estate's being sued because if your dad has a car wreck, the insurance companies are not going to cover his car wreck because he's driving with brain damage. And
Right. Which is what I
man
learned on
that's
one of your
always
videos.
been the daddy of the family and the boss of the family, and he's even got God on his side and a Bible to hit you with, you're going to
Yes.
have some issues. So part of that's going to be based on where you live, what state you live in. In
Okay.
some states, the doctor, as soon as the family notifies them, is required to notify the state that this person can no longer drive. Some of it is the family having to break the car, disconnect the battery, take away the distributor cap,
Right.
give them a key that doesn't fit, put flat tires on the car. I mean, there's so
Right.
many things you have to do, but you have to realize he's not safe on the road and neither are the people around him. And do you really
Right.
want his legacy to be,
No.
he not only lost the farm, but he also killed a family driving the wrong way on an on-ramp.
Right.
And that
So
happened
my
to a patient of mine several months ago in a state where she finally got picked up because she was going the wrong way on an up ramp.
right.
So it's
Well,
very,
Tina,
So
it's very,
it,
very,
it is. In my the doctor, the neurologist is the one that told my dad. I argued, I wasn't there physically. I was with on the phone with my brother. And of course, my brother didn't realize how bad my dad is. And I was saying, yes, this is a problem. He should have quit driving at least 5 years ago, at least. Right. So when they were at the neurologist appointment, she told him he is fine to drive as long as it's within a 10-mile radius of their home and during daylight hours,
okay. So first of
or
all,
has
now we're
red.
not, hang on, we're not at a real
Oh.
neurologist because a real neurologist understands this man has brain damage and has no idea what a 10-mile limit is. A couple left
Right.
Temple, Texas to go get gas in Temple, Texas. That's in Central Texas. They found them 3 days later in Arkansas. The Amber Alert is used more as a silver alert for dementia people than it is as an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
He called me from Arizona. A nurse at a hospital had given him a book of mine and told him to call me. And he called me and he said his wife knew that she was only supposed to go to the nursing home and help with communion. And then she knew the 5-mile trip home. And I said, when did they find her? And he said, 30 days later. And I said,
Hmm.
where did they find her? And he said, they found her in Nevada in a state park. And I said, where was her body? And he said, 3 miles from the car.
Yeah.
So any doctor telling you that your father knows, to tell that doctor to get in and drive with him. Let's see how happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It
That,
simply can't
yes.
happen. And you got to do whatever you can do because they really do have car wrecks and kill people. They really
Okay.
do.
Oh, I know. I'm scared to death.
Notify
Yeah,
the
I'm scared to
fight the
death that's not going
battle.
to happen.
insurance company, notify the sheriff, disconnect the car battery, disconnect the car, break the car. Do
Right.
things, think out of the box, hide the keys. You can't drive the car if you can't find the keys.
And the keys. Right.
You're doing good, Tina. Hang in there and keep fighting the battles and being
And you
being
have.
the advocate for your
Yeah.
family.
You've been doing this now for decades, and I
That's
don't
right.
I
think that
have.
your mom's in denial. I think that your mom lives under somebody else's thumb
Yeah.
and probably hasn't had her own voice in a long time.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
right. And she's scared. So my dad's dad
Sure.
went through Alzheimer's, and my mom saw at the end.
You don't
My
really
mom
know that.
saw when they.
Yeah, you
What?
don't really know that. Did he have an autopsy? Most
Well,
people
no.
did not have
No.
Alzheimer's. Most people had vascular dementia because we have no drugs for blood pressure. Do y'all remember the very first heart transplant? This one heart transplant made international news. Now they do them in Gatesville, Texas. They do
Right.
transplants. So we didn't have those medications. And if you'll think about it, when you and I were growing up, there were only 2 dementias. Somebody either had senility, which is Alzheimer's, or they had hardening of the arteries, which is vascular.
Right.
And the one that was more common was hardening of the arteries. We didn't have
Well,
blood pressure medicines. We didn't have statins.
true.
Yeah.
True. But they said, or my grandpa was doing the same exact things as that my dad is doing when they told us grandkids about it and how they that grandpa was making odd decisions with money and one of my uncles had to step in and help out. So those stories that they were telling me is what I realized with my dad oh my word, my dad is doing the same thing now. And this was back in
That's the same
2000,
thing.
right?
Yeah,
So
most dementia people do those. That's how most families realize something is wrong, is something goes terribly astray financially.
right.
No.
But
Continue to join us,
it's
Tina. That's what my other advice for you. Continue
I
to come
do.
back. We have a couple
Okay.
other questions I want to get to. I'm not trying to cut you
Sure.
off. I
Thank you.
appreciate you bringing all these issues up.
And Tina, you
Thank you so
have to pat yourself on the back because you
Really?
picked up on this 25 years ago. Most people would
Oh.
never have done that, never have
Mhm.
spotted that, never been able to figure out what was going on. And you figured out something is wrong with my daddy. My daddy never did this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Thank
it's
you.
a matter now of pulling all of your pieces together. So your own concern becomes yourself. Oh my God, I don't want it. So
Right.
go to, Glenda, you'll have to put this in, the Million Veteran Longitudinal Study on
Lord,
CNN. I know.
I was gonna say, what?
you
I
may
can't
have
write
to
that
type
down.
that in.
I don't have that capability. Million veteran. They studied 1 million veterans between the ages of 44 and 99. So it's the Million Veteran Longitudinal Study, and you'll find it on CNN. It
Okay.
lists 8 things to do to age without diabetes, without heart disease, and without dementia. And
Okay.
the good news for me is it even said, you're a little late, but go ahead and start it. You're in your 60s. And the biggest one, number one, is you have to exercise at least an hour a day, not 15 minutes a day, an hour a day. That's what humans
Oh,
evolved to do. Number two, and this is
okay.
my favorite and tells you this was a VA study, don't get addicted to opiates. Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're
so
good
just
there.
make sure you underline that. Don't get addicted to opiates. And then it's
Okay.
like, don't use tobacco, alcohol in
Nope.
moderation. Important
Nope.
that you follow the Mediterranean diet and you keep your weight under control. That
Yeah, mine's not good.
you get enough sleep, and that you have a social life. And
Right.
Glenn, social life does not mean a dark, smoky bar. You know, people think dark, smoky bar.
Darn it.
If
Darn
you'll
it.
go to that study, it lists those 8 things, and what you'll realize is I'm already doing 4 of them. Let me do these others and see what happens. But that hour of exercise a day will change your
key.
life. And when Glenda saw me and said something about weight loss, I said, well, I read the Million Veterans Longitudinal Study in May, and it's now November, and I've lost 45 pounds. And it's simply
Good
because
job.
thank you. I work out for at least an hour every day. And I've
Okay.
not gotten addicted to opiates, which was my next thing. I was trying to get addicted, but didn't.
How are you doing on those smoky bars though?
I stayed out of them. Yeah. Hurt my contacts. Yeah. You
We
can,
have to bring a little laughter every once in a while, y'all. This
Right.
is
I haven't
good stuff.
found a smoky bar lately. I've been looking.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Let me move on. We have a couple more questions here. Meredith, what is the theory on why people with dementia don't like to bathe? My mother has not taken a shower in at least a year, but does bird baths, as she puts it. She recently sustained 3 compression fractures, and although she is recovering, I'm afraid she is going to stop bathing altogether soon because of reduced mobility. We also think she has had another stroke at the time of the fall because we noticed a drastic downturn. Diagnosis is vascular dementia.
Did it occur to y'all the stroke caused the fall? That would be what my thought was. Bathing is difficult because it's more than 4 dozen steps, first of all. Secondly, our parents did not grow up bathing the way we do. We grew up with indoor plumbing. My mother didn't have indoor plumbing until 1957 when she was a senior in high school. So even if my mother had grown up with indoor plumbing, water was scarce. People were on well water. You didn't run a bath every night and also have a bath in the morning. So people did take sponge baths, bird baths. I've called them other kind of baths, washcloth baths, but that's how mama bathed. Your mother got bathed at night by her mother, was she got washed off in a bird bath with a washcloth. She got cleaned and wiped off to keep her from going to bed dirty. So families will tell me, I think my loved one's bathing. I hear them go in there. I hear the shower turn on. And I said, do you ever see a wet towel? Oh, they hadn't thought about that part. Does the soap get wet? Have you replaced shampoo lately? The steps are missing, and the steps start with, you got to know you need a bath. Then you have to know how to find the bathroom. You have to get the bathroom warm. You have to bring clothes with you into the bathroom. Does your bathroom turn on with one knob, two knobs, another knob to make a shower work? Do you turn water on and hop in, or do you have to wait for water to get to a certain temperature? And then do you have to mix two different knobs to make water be the right temperature? Does your shampoo pump? Does it pull up? Does it press from the side? Do you undo the top? How do you get shampoo out? When I grew up, you had shampoo and you had soap. You had a washcloth. Now you may have a loofah, a scrunchie, a washcloth, soap that pumps, soap that's foamy, soap that doesn't look like soap. You have shampoo and conditioner. You have soap that looks like it could be shampoo or conditioner. It's not even called soap. It's called body wash. You have to know how to use all of those different things, then how to rinse off, how to turn water back off, how to make water leave the tub. Then you have to step out and redress in the opposite order you undressed. And if any of you ladies have ever tried to put on a bra while your back is wet, that's like trying to wrestle an anaconda. And it is and it's hard for you and I to understand how complex bathing is, but our mothers didn't believe we could properly bathe until we were 8, 9, or 10. So if your mother is now taking bird baths, as you call it, if this was my mother, I would be going, my mother has now gone down in her file cabinet to where she is somewhere in high school or junior high or elementary, because she is taking the kind of bath she would have taken before the family had indoor plumbing. And we didn't have indoor plumbing across the whole US until 1974. So things that you and I are so accustomed to, you have to go back to where they were when this ADL, this activity of daily living, got learned. The other thing is you should be using the Bristol ADL scale, not the Katz's ADL scale. Dr. Katz's scale was built in 1952 for normal aging. The Bristol scale was built for families who have somebody with dementia by the Bristol Medical School of Bristol, England. So use the Bristol scale for your loved one to give the doctor a better idea of what's happening. And at the end of the day, your mother's not working on the highway, is she? How dirty can she be? So if she's keeping everything clean, then I'm not really worried about her. My own grandmother said, my job as her caregiver was to clean her as far up as possible and as far down as possible, but to let her clean all possible. And so part of it can be that you're too
Oh, goodness.
immodest to a person who's very modest. Okay. But the little bird baths, it's not a concerning thing. It's just a normal thing.
Okay, good. And Meredith also added, apparently that she's in assisted living, that she won't accept help from anyone there or from her. So, you know,
Well, and that
pick your
then,
battles.
well, but then also go to the website and look at the brief psychiatric rating scale. The brief psychiatric rating scale is what tells you if your loved one with dementia is actually having psychotic episodes. And it'll say things like hostility. All of these forms in the tool section on my website, all of those forms are observational forms that I use as a gerontologist. You just don't know about them. But once you know about them, they're easy to understand, they're easy to fill out, and it allows you to go back to the physician with a much better picture than that person you take to the doctor. Because when you take them to the doctor, you get them up, you get them cleaned, you get them shaved, you put on makeup, you have a breakfast, you drive them somewhere, they go in a doctor's office, the doctor walks in wearing the doctor uniform, and you and I have been taught to sit up straight, pay attention to the doctor, and the doctor says, hi, how are you? And your loved one says, I'm fine, how are you? And you just want to kick the snot out of them. You got to take the doctor the tools that actually say this is what happens at home. Because the person I brought you here looks all dressed up and ready to go, but at home I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't understand how to bathe anymore.
Right. Thank you. Just want to tell you, I'm going to be leaving in a couple of minutes. So it's been my pleasure to be with you. Minerva's going to step in and continue as me. She's really
Was
good
it
at
something
this.
we
So
said, Glenda?
I've got to go find the Smoky Bar. I mean, it's
I'll
got to
be
be
in
out there
Lubbock.
somewhere.
Go to Lubbock. That's where I'm headed.
Pick me
Lubbock,
up,
where you're
Glenda.
headed. That's right. What,
Pick
Minerva?
me up, Glenda.
Oh, yeah, Guinevere, love you. Stay in tune with us now. All right, I'm going to read Charlene's message in the chat box, and then I'm going to leave, and Minerva will take over.
Okay.
I am new to being a caretaker. She called it caretaker. My father was my mother's caretaker. Oh, okay. But passed away a few days ago. I'm sorry for your loss, Charlene. She will now be living with me. Number one, I have a younger brother who in theory wants to help, but not really helping. He wants both of us to be power of attorneys equally, but I think I should be the only one, only her. Any advice there? And her second question, is dizziness common with dementia, Alzheimer's patients, and there's anything we can do about that?
The dizziness would indicate that there's a vascular condition present. And remember, doctors automatically tell older people you have Alzheimer's without doing any testing, and Alzheimer's is not 90% of the dementias. European stuff shows it's closer to about 20%. A big one is probably vascular, and dizzy certainly makes us think vascular, or makes us think stroke, or makes us think something else is going on that's being missed. The brother, I would make the secondary POA in case you drop dead, but I would not share POA because there's decisions you have to make, and you have to make them as an adult, and you have to make them understanding I'm making a decision for a person who's my parent, but they have brain damage. And you can't be arguing with little brother who doesn't do the care about what's needed for your mother. So you need to be the sole POA, and I would be both financial and medical POAs, and make sure that you are in the state with your mother. So for example, if your mother signed your POA in Virginia and then y'all moved to Texas, that POA is no longer valid in Texas. Okay, so get the POA signed, get the medical power of attorney and financial power of attorney. It's not one, it's two. You also need to go online, and Glenda, you'll have to tell me, is it Medicaid or Medicare? Because I always get them wrong. You know, I have them so confused. Older people use Medicaid, Medicare.
Medicare, primarily Medicaid, if you're in a facility or, yeah.
You've got to go online with those people and or go on the website. You've got to find, there's a piece of paper your mother has to sign that gives you the authority to talk about her accounts on her behalf. If you don't have it signed, they don't care if you're the power of attorney at all. They're not going to discuss billing and things with you that you may need to discuss. So get the medical power of attorney, the financial power of attorney, make him the secondary in case something happens to you. And then that way you're able to make the decisions you need to make, and make sure you get that Medicare or Medicaid release of information signed. All of y'all need to have that signed, because those government people will not talk to you without it. Well, I'm depressed. Everybody here depressed yet? Are we all depressed? Charlene says depressed. Thumbs up on that. I'm depressed. Yeah.
I get it. Okay, next up we have, how much time do you have, Dr. Cummings? I want to be
I'm good.
mindful.
Go ahead.
Okay. Nancy from Canada, new diagnosis here, vascular and Lewy body simultaneously. How do I navigate the feelings of anticipatory grief, and also how to deal with non-compliance of any meds? Hope this isn't too big.
Well, Lewy body people are very sensitive to medications. So go to nih.gov and get the Lewy body handbook and just PDF print it out, because that'll give you tons of information. The Lewy Body Dementia Association website is very helpful, lbda.org. And then your person non-compliant with medication, you know, sometimes there's just not much you can do about that. They may have lived their whole life and never taken medications. I have met people that in their lifetimes, even in their 90s, don't take medication. And they were in a generation not taking medications because we didn't have medications.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is me, Nancy from Canada. What I'm wondering about is the lack of medication when we've given this person Seroquel. So we're not really sure about Lewy
they're not
bodies.
even, no, they're absolutely
Okay.
not supposed to have Seroquel.
Okay,
Lewy body
so-
dementia people do not get antipsychotics because it's
Isn't that
deadly.
interesting? because our
The-
doctors up here are okay with it.
Yeah,
So-
they're wrong. So
So
the
what I,
psychotic that they get is a
Mhm.
non-typical, and that's how it's written, non-typical antipsychotic called Nuplazid, and it's Nuplazid. And
Ye-
that addresses the hallucination component of Lewy bodies.
okay, because what we've had is the doctor, because there's some little girls running in the room kind of thing, but there's
That's
also
one
the
of the-
vascular side.
No, the four hallucinations that are most common with Lewy body is they see children, they
Mhm.
see bug spiders, rats, and snakes. They
Okay,
see bad people coming to get them. They see
Mhm.
their spouse or their caregiver having sex, having orgies, having sex.
okay,
everywhere.
okay.
The new
So-
closet addresses that hallucination behavior.
Okay, so perhaps what it is not seeing those things. See, I'm coming into the game late, and so I think that person's actually not had the actual hallucinations, but the thoughts of these things. They're
Okay, if
convinced.
you're having a thought, they're having a hallucination.
Okay, so that's what it is. They're not okay. I got to get that straight in my head. So
A
what it is,
hallucination is something the person sees, hears, or smells that's not there.
okay, yeah,
Okay,
okay,
and so to
yeah.
tell you they see children, that's a hallucination and it's treated with Nuplazid. We never give people with Lewy body or Parkinson's Seroquel or
Okay.
other antipsychotics because it kills them. They're very
Okay, so how
Yeah.
come that, I'm just wondering why our doctor up here in Canada has decided to go that route. So I'm
They're
gonna have to
not
really
a
investigate.
They're not an expert on dementia. And the other
That's
thing
what
you
it
need
is.
to realize is there is nothing on a doctor's medical license that says I barely passed. There's nothing on their medical license that says I was in the bottom 50% of the class, but common sense tells us somebody had to be in the bottom of the class.
Okay,
Even somebody with an advanced uh, certification. You may have
yes.
a cardiologist who's a cardiologist, doesn't mean they were at the top of their class.
My goodness. Okay, this person,
So
my loved
go
one has been
to-
on this for about a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Look at Alzheimer's Society.Canada.
okay,
Have a very, very good one. It's the mirror one of the Alzheimer's Society.UK, but y'all have one as well. It's Alzheimer's Society.ca. And
okay,
look what you find on there, and then go to NIH.gov, which is the US repository of information and research, and get your Lewy body dementia book, and then go back to
Mhm.
or invite them to go take the day of medical school that they missed and announce to them that these folks are not given these medications simply because they're deadly.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we have to look at that. We're getting a lot of ageism, I feel.
Oh,
this case.
absolutely. If
Yeah,
you
we're
talk
getting a
to
lot of ageism.
everybody on this group would tell you that they go to the doctor and the doctor addresses you and
Yep.
doesn't even seem to be aware that the other person is in the room. And I actually
Okay,
came back from a doctor's appointment with my 17-year-old son, and I watched the doctor do the very same thing to him that they do to people with dementia. They turned to the parent and said, what is going on? And I thought Zachary actually shifted, and I thought he's fixing to come out of that chair because why isn't the doctor talking to him? So ages
okay.
exist, and once they get diagnosed with one thing, it's others. But if your person has Lewy body, then you are also watching for Parkinson's disease dementia, and you're also
Okay,
watching for Alzheimer's to join it, and they also have vascular dementia. So it's
this
not
was a geriatrician, actually. This is a geriatrician, so I'm wondering if perhaps the diagnosis is wrong. They said possibly Lewy bodies and possibly vascular. Now, she's had 2 TIAs in the last 10 years, but
okay.
that sort of
Then no, she's had two IAs, two TIAs have been documented. You don't
yes,
just one. And the reason they're not documented is you're talking about strokes occurring in blood vessels that are thinner than a strand of hair. So it's not that she's had 2, it's how many dozens has she had.
absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yes,
And if they're seeing children, if they're seeing those 4 hallucinations or one or all of them, that's Lewy bodies. And
yes.
you certainly could develop Lewy bodies as well as having vascular dementia, as well as having any other number of things.
Okay, good to know. Well, I'm really concerned about the Seroquel because it's just been like, this is good. You're not going to have an incident. accusatory type behavior towards my father, but we're putting you over here, and they've just given Sarah Quillen bye-bye.
The accusatory behavior is also a Lewy body hallucination.
Absolutely.
So you
Okay.
need to find a Lewy body specialist. and
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Check at y'all's medical schools. The medical schools are usually where we have real dementia testing centers where they can do the full battery of testing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hang in there, girl.
Good.
Okie dokie. Next, we have Mary Beth, 83-year-old mother, I believe late stage 5 in memory care for 3 months.
Yes,
Well,
a 3-year-old mother. What?
80, sorry,
Okay.
83-year-old mother. I
Mhm.
believe late stage 5. She's already in memory care for 3 months. She
Mhm.
won't leave her room and engage in any activities or socialization, including eating or the dining room. She does not believe she belongs in long-term care. My question is how to help her or not continue to fight it.
The social worker there should be addressing that, not the family member. That's the social worker's job to go find out what they need to do to get this lady to come out of her room and to be more engaged. The secondary thing is some people are introverts. She may not want to go out and be around other people. And the other thing is she may be in a community where there are a lot of stage 6 people. And so she would see that she does not look like those people. So I would talk to the social worker about things to do to engage your mother to get her to come out of the out into the community and do things. But that's their job to get her out of her room, not yours.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, get after them, Mary Beth.
and then let me see if she's still on. Yeah, Melody's still on. She sent a message. She has to leave shortly, but she cannot say thank you enough to Dr. Tam for her amazing help to me
You're so
trying to
good.
obtain hospice care for my husband, which did happen and helps me sleep better at night.
Because she took a deep breath and said to the doctor, I'm ready for a hospice order. Stamped her foot. And if he had said no, then next month she was going to go back and say, I'm ready for a hospice order and stamp her foot. They're not going to look at you and go, hey, Nancy from Canada, you think your person's ready for hospice? You have to go tell them, which is horrible. And I apologize for how our system is set up, but it's going to be the same way for each one of you. When you see declines in your loved one, and especially if you can say, I've seen weight loss 3 months in a row, that's a kicker for us. And if they can't really speak to answer questions, that's another big one. But all that happens is the doctor writes a hospice order. A hospice nurse from a hospice company will come to your house and interview several of them. Don't take the first group that comes. You may not feel good about them. Go with the group you feel best with. But they're going to do everything in their power to get your person on hospice, because otherwise they don't have a business. They all get paid the same by the government. It's just which one do you feel best about? So don't be afraid to do what our good friend did. Melody said, I need this service. He's earned it. He's deserved it. And he's declined. And she went to her doctor and asked for it. And the doctor wrote the order. And by golly, she snagged her a hospice company. So don't be afraid to get that extra layer of care. Remember, we wanted in place the final year, not the last week. And we want it there for their comfort. And we want it there so that Melody survives the disease, because she's doing care at home like so many of you are.
What you did, Dr. Cummings, was give me a finesse and language and courage to do that, and to say that I think you're at the stage you can do that, and now's the time. And several people had told me how hard it is to get a hospice referral for somebody who just has dementia. They don't have anything else wrong with them theoretically.
Just a
And you
terminal
gave me that courage. Yeah, just a terminal
Well, I
brain
forgot.
disease. So I'm grateful.
We did work on phraseology that would get
Yes,
the attention.
there's a finesse to this, what I learned in our experience, and I will ever be so grateful. And I just wanted to say that in front of everybody on this call. And Dr. Tam didn't ask me to say that, but you
Give
gave
you
me
the $5
courage.
later. I'll give you the $5 later. No, she has
Thank
been a
you.
wonderful, wonderful caregiver and wife, and I know so many of you have been in the same position. But if your loved one, if you see a change in status, that's the words we're going to use. A change in status. If you are seeing decline, if you're seeing weight changes where they're now beginning to lose weight, which is what we expect to happen. You want to talk to the doctor, but use words that they understand. You can't call and say, I think they're bad and need hospice now. But if you do things like change in status, change in condition, if you use the right terminology, you get the doctor's attention that you've got a little more understanding than about this process. Yay, Melody.
Yay, all of
And-
y'all. Thank you.
And that seems to be all the messages we had in the chat. Guinevere did say she received her itty bitty book and she's loving it.
Good, you
And-
can get it and diagnose all of your family over Thanksgiving. You're stage 3, you're stage 5. Sorry. Yeah,
I
you
love
diagnose
you.
everything. Yeah, you've got this and
Take
this and this. Yeah, it'll scare them to death. It'll scare them to
Yeah.
death. Use it to your power. Use it.
Take care.
And with that, I want to say thank you everyone for participating. Just a little housekeeping. We have some sessions coming up. Tomorrow we have let me bring this paper closer. What you need to know about medication, the benefits and risks for seniors and caregivers. And that's going to be with Lucy Barolac. On Friday, we have our Spanish session. It's Cómo celebrar cuando eres un cuidador. And that's going to be with Leti Guzman. She is one of our caregiver specialists and she oversees the Valley. And then on Monday, we have caregiving in the holidays. And that's going to be the theme pretty much for most of the sessions that we're having this month is the holiday season since it is coming. I am going to put in the chat box the links to register for our summit. We have our English one this Thursday. It is going to be virtual and there are some locations that will be offering in person. And then next week on is the 19th? No, next week on the 16th, we're going to have our Spanish version. That one's going to be completely in Spanish and both of them will be recorded and posted on our website again. Dr. Tam, you are awesome.
Thank you, Minerva. You're awesome too.
You help us out so much throughout the years. It's not even funny. And thank you everyone for all you do. You are doing a great job. Just hang in there and remember to breathe. You have to put yourself first. You don't want to be the first in underground.
Yeah, the minute you start worrying about other people, start thinking, who's going to step up if something happens to me? And realize that you're the one who stepped up and we've got to keep you alive. We've got to keep you safe and we've got to get you to where you survive this disease. Okay, so join a support group, come to this support group, call Minerva at home. She's always happy. Call Guinevere, she'll talk to you. Call me. My phone number is 254-216-3668. I don't answer it, but you'll feel better just because you tried to call. But I really do answer the phone. If I don't, it's just because I'm traveling, and please call me again. But I'm a specialist in dementia and I'm happy to help you understand what's happening to your loved one. Okay, so good luck to everybody. You're not crazy. Some of you need to get together after this call and start a national support group of people who were told they were crazy by a doctor, and it turns out we're actually right. Okay, and trust you know this person better. And while you're on my website and you're doing all those tools for your person, go ahead and do Zaret's burden interview for yourself. It's the one that starts with a Z. Do the one that's caregiver grief inventory. These measure your stress levels and your grief levels so that you do survive the disease. It's normal to walk in a room and not remember what you went in there for. And as a dementia family caregiver, your first thought is, oh crap, I've got it too, especially Canada, especially lady who's can go back and go a grandfather, other people in our family had something. That's normal brain function. Y'all are under a lot of stress. So do things for yourself. I use the mindful movement on YouTube as one of my ways to keep myself centered. I use Deepak Chopra on YouTube because it's free. Can't beat that, it's free. I've now advanced in sleeping. I used to have to listen to the mindful movement. Sarah Raymond do her 5-hour, we will talk you to sleep meditation. I'm up to thunderstorms now. I'm getting better, but it's normal to have trouble with sleeping. And it is normal when you read the staging tools and you read stage 2 to think, oh crap, I've got it too. One by one, all the things in stage 2 are normal human behaviors. We all do them. We lose our phone, we lose our wallet, we lose our keys. We forget the name of our kid. It all happens. It's only that you realize you saw these things happening all together with your loved one, and that was the difference. When you get ready for stuff for your doctor, all of the tools in the back are made on the tool page. They're all made to either provide information on your loved one or to test your own stress levels so that you survive the disease, because 3 out of 10 of you die first. And the death is directly related to the stress of care. So it's critical that we help you take care of yourself. If you've reached a breaking point, but you don't want to put that person in a community forever, you can do a 2-week respite program in a community, and they will take care of your loved one and you can go home and sleep. Minerva, most of the caregivers I know just want to take a nap. So it doesn't have to be all or the other. For those of you who have siblings, sign them up for care. We're about to have Thanksgiving. Get out the calendar, sign up the weekend they're going to be there, and let them see what you're dealing with, and make sure on that weekend you go somewhere else. Go to a hotel, put your feet in a pool, go to a dark smoky bar, look for Glenda. We don't know where she is, but take care of you. It is normal that you're grieving, and it's normal if you're on this call that you're grieving at the level of grief called post-death grief, meaning you're grieving for your loved one as though they'd already died, even though they're still here. And it's because the person you knew is gone. It's only a shell and bits and pieces of them that remain. And yet the love you have, the dedication you have, the feeling of family, your marriage vows, all of those things, you continue to do care, but understand you're doing what takes a dozen professional caregivers to do in stage 5. In stage 6, you're doing the work of 16 professionals. So there's a reason you're tired and exhausted. So take respite days. Call your area agencies on aging. They all have respite programs. Some of them do 2 to 3 weeks of care that they can provide in a skilled setting. Some of them can send out a caregiver for 12 hours a week for 3 months just to help you get some respite. Talk to your church groups, talk to neighbors, talk to friends, talk to families. Some of you don't have family members or friends helping because you look like you got it all together and you don't tell them. You got to tell people what you need. So tell them you need an afternoon off. You're going to leave him with some popcorn and some pie and a favorite Western movie, but you're taking the afternoon off and you need to come watch grandpa or daddy or whoever it is. But take care of yourselves, because without you, we don't have caregivers. That's the reality. And your loved one would be horrified to know that you're killing yourself while you take care of them and they have a terminal brain disease. So remember, take care of you. Those of you who have family members where you're going, I had a father and then a grandfather and maybe even a great grandfather, medications are coming. So don't be worried. Just take care of you and remember to breathe. Okay, Minerva, I'll shut up now and we can move on. Okay, everybody's free now.
It's okay. Thank you, everyone, for participating with us today. Thank you, Dr. Cummings. The session will be posted on our website in a couple of hours, so you can always go back and listen to it again. Yes, I am that quick.
You are that fast.
Yes, I am.
Here to Minerva. Don't play cards with her. I'm just saying. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Betty, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.